Hello everyone, this is Yoan and welcome to a new episode. In this video, I would love to share the Serene Sling Bag project with you. These sling bags are perfect for outdoor adventures from walking your dog, a day hike, cycling, outdoor festival, etc. The finished measurements are about 7.5 inches wide, 11 inches tall, and 3.5 inch deep at the bottom. There are two designs that you can make. This is the design one. I use canvas fabric as the main fabric and this lovely cork fabric as the accent fabric. It comes with a front slip pocket here, pretty large and spacious. And in the interior, there is a mesh pocket and a zipper pocket. You can get the pattern pieces and the cutting chart for the design one for free. It's available at YoanSewingStudio.com. I will put the link in the description box down below. Design 2 comes with two front zipper pockets, and in the interior, there's also the mesh pocket and the zipper pocket, an additional card pocket with 3 card slots, plus a slip pocket too. The pattern for the design 2 is included in the premium pattern, which you can purchase at YoanSewingStudio.com. The premium pattern will also include the full written instructions and license to sell the finished bag. So I will put the link in the description box down below if you're interested in purchasing the premium pattern. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Alright guys, the first thing that we're gonna do is to print out and assemble the pattern pieces. I recommend to first print the first page and then test the square just to make sure that your printer is in proper setting. If you're a regular here, you may be very familiar on how to assemble the pattern pieces. So we're gonna line up the alphabet ellipse. Make sure to match the letter there. So you may fold back or cut one of the page's margin and then slide the other page behind it. Make sure that all the lines are aligned and there is no overlapping there, and then tape to secure them. This is the free pattern, so you will end up with 3 sections of pattern with 6 pattern pieces in it. The premium pattern has 6 sections with 12 pattern pieces in it for both design 1 and 2. To make the front pocket of the design 1, first we're going to transfer the marking of the button snap closure. Poke a little hole in the middle of the marking there, and then position the pattern on top of the pocket exterior. Of course, you want to match all the edges. Now grab a fabric marker and then draw a little dot mark through the hole there. And you want to repeat the same to the pocket lining. Cut a little piece of stabilizer or inner facing, and then you want to apply that on the wrong side of the pocket lining, right around the marking there. Just make sure that it is out of the way from the seam allowances. Now you want to transfer the button marking to the front exterior panel, just like shown before. On the wrong side here, you want to apply a little bit of stabilizer right around the mark. I recommend to apply double layer of stabilizers there so that the button will sit nice and snugly. Lay the front pocket exterior and the pocket lining with the right sides facing, secure with some sewing clips, and then stitch along the top edges with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you want to press the seams open. My cork fabric here can handle a little bit of ironing on low heat over a pressing cloth. Please do a little bit of testing beforehand, especially if you use cork or faux leather type of fabric, just to see which setting works best for you. If yours can handle heat very well, you can just finger press, no problem. Now let's flip this to the right side. Press or finger press the top edge and then top stitch. For this project, I use heavy duty thread or upholstery thread. This will pop really nicely when we do top stitching, especially on cork or faux leather fabric. If you don't have this, a good quality polyester thread will work just fine. I'm using my Juki sewing machine here with walking foot, and the stitch length that I use here is 3.8 millimeter. Once you've done that, trim the seam allowances down to 1/4 of an inch. Install the female button on the mark. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. I like using this letter hole puncher, even though usually when you buy a set of the button snap kit, it comes with the hole puncher, but sometimes it's really hard to use. Now install the male button on the right side of the front exterior. Position the pocket panel on the right side of the front exterior panel. Match the button closure and then match the notches and all the edges. Secure with some sewing clips and then base stitch in place with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that's it guys, the front pocket is done. Next we're gonna work on the design to front exterior. First we're gonna prepare the zipper. So you will need 2 nylon coil zipper at least 9 inches long. The width of the zipper should be about 1¼ inch. I use zipper by the yard here, so I cut my zipper about 9½ inch long. You wanna stitch back and forth at the start of the zipper to keep it closed. And I also stitch the back of the zipper so that I won't accidentally lose the zipper pull. Lay the lower front exterior panel with the right side facing up. Apply basting tape along the top edges. Peel the top layer off. Lay the zipper with the right side facing down with the start of the zipper at your left-hand side. You can certainly place the start of the zipper the opposite way. Just make sure that you keep it consistent with the remaining zipper. Match the edges of the zipper tape with the edges of the fabric. Finger press so that the zipper will be sticking onto the fabric. Apply basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape. Now take the lower pocket panel and lay that right side down, matching the top edge and the side edges. Finger press to make sure that the basting tape will be sticking onto the fabric. And once everything is secured, you want to stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now flip to the right side, press the seams. You can either finger press or use iron on low setting. Just be mindful with the zipper teeth. Make sure to press both the exterior fabric and the interior fabric, and then top stitch. Next, you want to take the middle panel with the right side facing up. Now, if your fabric has directional print, it's very important to make sure that this side here is the bottom edge. Apply some basting tape along the edges there. Now take the zipper with the lower panel. Of course, you want to match the edges of the zipper and also make sure to match the side edges as well. Now let's take another basting tape on the edges of the zipper tape there. Fold the pocket towards the top edge, matching the bottom edge of the pocket panel with the edges of the zipper tape. Once everything is secured, you want to stitch this in place, also with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you want to flip this open, press the seams, and then top stitch. Apply some basting tape along the top edge. Take the second zipper, and we're going to install this with the start of the zipper at your left-hand side, or the same as the first zipper. Lay the zipper right side down, matching the edges of the zipper tape with the edges of the fabric. Stick a basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape there. Lay the upper pocket panel right side down, matching the top and the side edges. And once everything is secured, you want to stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now flip to the right side, and just like before, you want to press the seams, both the exterior and the interior as well. Do your best to get the fabrics to sit as flat as possible with no excessive pleats, and then top stitch. Once you've done top stitching, it's time to attach the upper panel. First, we're going to switch this panel upside down with the right side still facing up. Stick a basting tape along the bottom edge there. Now lay the zipper with the right side facing down. Of course, you want to match the edges of the zipper tape with the bottom edge of the upper panel and also match the side edges. Now stick another basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape there. Fold the pocket panel towards the top, matching the bottom edge of the pocket panel with the edges of the zipper tape, and of course make sure that the side edges are aligned. Finger press to secure the sandwich, and then stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now let's flip this open, press the seams as flat as you can, and then top stitch. Now let's trim off any excess zipper, and then base stitch the side edges with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now let's cut the notches through the pocket fabric there, simply following the existing ones. And that's it guys, the front exterior for design 1 is done. Now we're going to work on the back exterior. Fuse the stabilizer on the wrong side of the back exterior panel. Center the position, of course. Now let's work on the D-ring tabs. So you want to cut 2 little rectangles and prepare 2 1-inch D-rings. To make the D-ring tab, you want to fold the rectangle in half widthwise and then press. Open the fold and then fold the short sides towards the center fold and then press. Now let's fold this again in half and then press. Now you have a 1-inch wide strip. Next you want to stitch this all around about 1/8 inch from the edge. Attach the D-ring. Position the D-ring tab on the side edge about 1 inch away from the bottom, just like shown here. Secure with a clip, and you want to repeat the same to the opposite side, and then base stitch in place with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Next, we're going to work on the strap connector. For the design one, you want to cut the front panel from the accent fabric. Measure 3/8 inch from the top edge of the front panel. Draw a straight line using disappearing fabric marker. Flip this to the wrong side and then apply a basting tape along the top edge there. Now fold the top edge towards the wrong side about 3/8 inch. Use the mark line that we drew earlier as the guide. Finger press so that the basting tape will adhere to the fabric. Now for the back panel, since this is a regular canvas fabric, we can just fold and press. Just like before, you want to fold the top edge towards the wrong side about 3/8 inch and then press. Now with the right sides facing, you want to pin together the strap connector front and back panel using sewing clips and then stitch along the side edges with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now trim off the seam allowances down to about 1/8 inch and then turn this panel right side out. Finger press to neaten all the sides. Top stitch along the side edges with about 1/8 inch seam allowance. When working with corp fabric or faux leather type of fabric, no need to backstitch. Instead, you want to leave long enough tails on both ends so that we can tie knots to secure the thread. So I'll pull the thread from the back side there, tie 1 or 2 knots, and then we're going to bury this thread tail using hand sewing needle in between the layer of the fabric. So everything will be secured and looking nice and neat. Find the bottom center point of the strap connector. So fold this in half and then mark the center fold. Position the strap connector on the top edge of the back exterior panel, matching the top center point of the back exterior panel with the bottom center point of the strap connector. You want to make sure that the back side of the strap connector is facing the right side of the back exterior panel. Secure with a sewing clip and then stitch with the exterior panel facing up with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you can trim off the excess fabric of the strap connector so that everything will be nice and even. Now we're gonna work on the strap. So the pattern called for 1.5 inch wide webbing strap. So I recommend to choose webbing that is sturdy but also comfortable. Make sure to finish the raw edges of the webbing. So if your webbing is polyester or nylon, you can easily flame seal the raw edges. You can also use fray check or simply zigzag stitch the edges. For the hardwares, you will need 1.5 inch adjustable strap slider and a 1.5 inch swivel hook. Grab one of the end of the webbing strap and feed that to the slider from the wrong side towards the right side and then back to the wrong side. Have about 1.5 inch clearance there, and then you want to stitch this in place. Make a rectangle to secure the strap. Now let's set this aside with the wrong side facing up. Feed the other end of the strap through the swivel hook. So the head of the swivel hook should be facing the outside of the webbing or the right side. Pull the strap through. Now you want to take the slider with the wrong side or the end of the strap facing up. Feed the remaining end of the strap. So this edges is now hidden underneath the strap. At this point, you want to make sure that your strap isn't twisted. Pull the strap through. Measure 2.5 inch from the end of the strap. Draw a line to mark it with your fabric marker. Insert the end of the strap into the strap connector. You want to go in up to the mark line. Center the position there, just like shown here. Secure with some sewing clips, and you want to make sure that the right side of the strap is facing up, so you can tell from the slider here. Next, you want to measure 2 inches from the top edge of the strap connector using disappearing fabric marker, of course. And then we're going to stitch starting from this 2 inch mark line and then stitch diagonally towards the top. Use the side top stitching line as the guide. After that, you want to go straight across to close the opening and then stitch down to make the corresponding diagonal line. Again guys, I'm not gonna back stitch here, but rather leave long tails and then tie the knots to secure the thread later. I used the same setting when I top stitched the side edges of this strap connector before. Alright, so your strap should look just like this, and you want to work pretty much the same way for the design too. Next, we're gonna work on the mesh pocket for the front interior panel. We're gonna use fold over elastic to bind the top edges of the pocket panel. So you wanna cut the elastic a slight shorter, about 8 inches. So from the starting point of the pocket, you wanna fold the elastic just like that. So the top edge of the pocket panel should be sitting on the center point of the elastic and then secure with a clip. Now go to your sewing machine and then stitch this in place with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Secure the opposite end of the elastic to the pocket panel using a sewing clip. Fold and slightly pull the elastic as you go so that it will fit the pocket. I recommend to use walking foot. Secure the mesh pocket to the front interior panel, matching the sides and the bottom edges, and then base stitch this with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's it, the mesh pocket is done. Next, we're gonna work on the card pocket for the design too. Here I've got the card pocket panel already fused with interfacing on the wrong side. If you use heavier fabric for your lining fabric, you may skip the interfacing. Now let's take the pattern. So one thing that I want to mention here, be mindful with the tape that you use to join the pattern. Although I designed the layout of this pattern so that the tape will not get in the way when you do the folding and pressing, but just be mindful about it. Now lay the pattern piece 10 on the wrong side of the card pocket panel, matching all the edges of course. Secure with a couple of pins, one pin at the bottom and another one at the top. We're gonna start by folding line 6 towards the top. Use a thin ruler or seam gauge to help you guide the folding. Align the ruler with the line 6 and then fold towards the top. Finger press first and then remove the ruler. Now press along the folded edge. Be mindful with the pin. Open the fold and then we're gonna fold line 5 towards the bottom. So this should fold naturally following the first split that will be formed on the right side. Now let's press this. So this is how it should look like on the right side. You can see the first slot is formed. Next, we're gonna fold line 4 towards the top and then press. Now open the fold. Next, we're gonna fold line 3. Now again, be mindful of the tape over there. Let's fold line 3 towards the bottom, just like that. And then press. And you wanna press just along the edges of the fold there. On the right side here, the second slot should be formed. Next, we're gonna fold line 2 towards the top and then press, open the fold, and then fold line 1 towards the bottom and then press. Alright, so your card pocket panel should look just like this. Now let's remove the pattern paper and then press this again one more time to make everything nice and crisp. Now let's top stitch along each pleat lines there, about 1/8 inch from the folded edge. Once you've done top stitching, stitch along the side edges with about 1/8 inch seam allowance to secure the pleats. Next, we're gonna trim off the bottom edge so that this panel will measure 5.5 inch tall. Okay, first if the top edge is a little uneven, you can first straighten this up, trim off about 1/8 inch. Now use your ruler and then measure 5.5 inch and then trim the excess fabric at the bottom and voila! Next, we're gonna stitch the side panels. Lay a side panel to one side of the card pocket with the right sides facing and then stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you wanna press the seams towards the side panel and then top stitch. Repeat the same to the opposite side. Now take the pocket lining and lay that right side down, matching all the edges. And then stitch the top and the bottom with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, press the seams open and then turn this right side out. Press it again and then top stitch along the top edges. Position the pocket panel on the right side of the back interior panel, about 2 inches away from the bottom edge. Secure with some sewing clips and then stitch the sides and the bottom with about 1/8 inch seam allowance. Make sure to do the notches along the pocket panel, simply following the existing ones. And there you go! Next, we're gonna work on the interior zipper pocket. On the wrong side of the pocket panel, you wanna draw the zipper template just like shown here. Fold the back interior main panel in half and then press to get the center fold crease. If you work on design too, you can just press the upper top. And you want to do the same to the pocket panel as well. Position the pocket panel on the right side of the back interior panel with the right side facing down about 2 inches away from the top edge. Secure with a pin and then stitch along the outline of the zipper template. Once you've done that, cut along the center line and the corner triangles. As usual, be careful when you cut the triangle corner, make sure that you don't cut through the stitches. Flip the pocket to the wrong side and then you want to neaten all the edges and then you want to go to your ironing board and then press to neaten all the edges of the template. Now let's prepare the zipper. So you will need an all-purpose nylon coil zipper at least 7 inches long. Make sure to stitch back and forth at the start of the zipper to keep the zipper shut. Stick some basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape and then peel the top paper layer off. Position the zipper template on top of the zipper. Center the position and then finger press so that the basting tape will be sticking onto the fabric. And then stitch along the edges of the template, about 1/8 of an inch. Trim off any excess zipper and then you want to fold the bottom towards the top, matching the edges, just like that. Secure with a couple of pins and then stitch the sides and the top with about 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. When you sew, make sure that the main panel is out of the way, so only stitch the pocket. And that's it guys, the zipper pocket is done. Take the front exterior and the front interior, lay them wrong sides together. Make sure to match the notches, the top and bottom center points, and the rest of the edges. Secure with some sewing clips. And then base stitch this all around with about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, repeat the same to the back panels. Alright, now we're gonna work on the zipper gusset. I use size 5 nylon coil zipper body yard, about 1¼ inch wide. The coil here looks like a metal coil, but it's actually nylon coil. Make sure to cut your zipper at least 20 inches long. I cut mine about 22 inches to allow me for some wiggle room. As usual, make sure to stitch the start of the zipper and the end of the zipper as well, so you won't accidentally lose a zipper pull. We're gonna start by installing the front zipper gusset. So take the front panel, lay that with the right side facing up, stick a basting tape on one of the long edges, remove the top paper layer off, lay the zipper with the right side facing down, matching the edges of the zipper tape with the edges of the gusset, stick a basting tape along the edges of the zipper tape, and then take the front gusset lining and lay that right side down, match the edges to create the zipper sandwich there. Make sure to match the side edges of the lining with the side edges of the exterior panel. Finger press so that everything will be nice and secured. And then stitch this in place with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, let's flip this to the right side. Press with an iron on low setting. Just be mindful with the zipper coil. Make sure your iron will not accidentally touch it. You want to press both the exterior and the lining side. Once you've done pressing, you want to go back to your sewing machine and then top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge. Next, we're going to work on the back zipper gusset. So we will do the same zipper sandwich. Here I've got the exterior panel facing right side up and I already stick a basting tape on one of the long edge. Lay the zipper with the right side facing down. Make sure to match the edges of the zipper with the edges of the back gusset. Also match the side edges of the back gusset with the side edges of the front gusset. Now let's stick a basting tape along the edges of the zipper and then take the back zipper gusset lining and lay that right side down. And again, make sure to match all the edges. Once everything is secured, let's stitch this in place with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, we're gonna flip this to the right side and then press both the exterior and the interior and then top stitch. Trim off any excess zipper. Now let's trim off the short edges so that this zipper panel will measure 19 inches long. Trim away about 1/4 of an inch max on each side. So I'm going to start from my left hand side here. I'm just going to trim away very little bit. This is also a great way to straighten up the edges. Now measure 19 inches and then trim the excess fabric on the opposite side. Now we're going to trim the long side edges so that the width of the panel will measure 3.5 inches. So we're going to start by trimming the front side. Again, you don't want to go overboard in the beginning. Just trim maximum 1/4 inch, just enough to straighten up the edges. Alright, now that we've straightened up the front edges, it's time to straighten up the back edges. So you want to measure 3.5 inch from the front edge and then trim off the excess fabric of the back side. Alright, the zipper gusset should now measure 19 inches long by 3.5 inches wide. Next, we're gonna base stitch all around the zipper gusset with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. And that's it guys, the zipper gusset is done. Now we're gonna mark the center point of this panel, so fold this in half, snip along the edge of the center fold, both the front and the back side. I also use fabric marker to make the marking more visible so that I won't miss them. Now you want to grab the lower gusset pieces and we're going to join them to the zipper gusset. Lay the lower gusset lining right side up. Lay the zipper gusset wrong side down. So you want to match one of the short side. Next you want to take the lower gusset exterior and lay that right side down. Make sure that you have already applied the stabilizer there. Match all the edges on one side and then stitch this in place with 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, flip to the right side. And then you want to finger press the seams towards the bottom gusset. Make sure to do it as flat as you can, both the exterior side and the interior side, and then top stitch. Now we're going to work the same to the opposite side. Here I've got the gusset panel right side up. Now bring the end of the exterior bottom gusset towards the edges of the zipper gusset. Now we're going to bring the end of the bottom gusset lining towards the edge of the zipper gusset. Match all the edges, secure with a sewing clip, and then stitch this in place. Once you've done that, turn this to the right side and then finger press the seams flat and top stitch. So your gusset panel should look like a loop at this point. Match the lower gusset exterior with the lining and then pin. Repeat the same to the opposite side. Continue pinning along the lower gusset and then base stitch the edges of the lower gusset with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alright guys, the gusset panel is done. Now it's time to assemble the bag. Take the front panel with the right side facing up, flip the gusset wrong side out with the front zipper gusset facing the front exterior. First gonna match the center point of the front zipper gusset with the top center point of the front panel with the right sides facing, and then pin. Match the center point of the lower gusset with the bottom center point of the front panel with the right sides facing, and then pin. Next we're gonna match the seams between the zipper gusset and the lower gusset, the fold line there, with the side notch, right sides together of course, and then pin. Due to the cork fabric here, I prefer to use the sewing clips. Now let's repeat the same to the opposite side. Now that we've got the 4 points matched, we're gonna continue pinning all around except the bottom corners. As usual, I like to hand baste the bottom corners to make it much easier to sew. Snip the edges of the gusset about 1/8 inch or so that the fabric will be nice and relaxed. Grab a hand sewing needle and a thread, and then hand baste along the corner there with simple running stitches. And if you can't get all the way to the corner, that's totally fine. The gusset panel is purposely designed to be a slight smaller to give you wiggle room if there is a little bit of mistake. Alright guys, now that the gusset has been secured, we're gonna stitch all around with 3/8 inch seam allowance. So with the gusset facing up, starting somewhere around the middle side, as you get to the corner, you may reduce the seam allowance to 1/4 inch from the edge of the gusset. You can see how much of a breeze it is to go through the corners due to the hand basting. As always, I use my walking foot. Since we're stitching through very thick layers, I recommend to lengthen your stitch length and use larger needles. Alright guys, this is how the gusset and the front panel should look like. And this is how my corners look like. If you want, you can flip it to the right side to see how it looks. Mine is looking great here. Now let's unzip the zipper all the way. Flip this to the wrong side again. Okay, now it's time to attach the back panel. So we're gonna pretty much do the same thing. The back panel has to be right side facing up. We're gonna first match the center point of the back zipper gusset with the top center point of the back panel. Of course, the right sides should be touching each other, just like that, and then pin. And then match the lower gusset center point with the bottom center point of the back panel. Match the side seams with the side notches. Now let's continue pinning all around and hand base the corners. Once everything is secured, we're gonna stitch this in place, also with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Again guys, make sure that you're stitching with the gusset facing up. And there you go, the sling bag has been assembled. Now if you want, you can turn this right side out just so you can see how it looks. Once you're happy with it, let's turn this back to the wrong side. Trim off the excess fabric around the corners. The last step in this project will be to bind the raw edges with bias tape. You will need 1/2 inch double fold bias tape, so the width of the bias tape when it's unfolded is about 1 inch. I simply use the pre-made bias tape here, but if you fancy making your own bias tape, by all means go ahead and do that. Open the fold and then match the edges of the fold with the raw edges, just like that. So you're going to place the binding on the gusset side. Secure the starting point with a sewing clip. So you want to start about a couple of inches from the edges of the binding there. And then stitch this in place about 1/4 inch from the edge. And as you get closer to where you start, you want to stop about 3 to 4 inches away from the starting point. Next, we're going to overlap the binding strip by 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to eyeball it. You can certainly measure and mark it beforehand. Alright, now I'm going to pinch the fabric right here a little bit and then secure with a clip. This will give you a little bit of extra room to overlap the strip. Now let's open all the folds and then lay the ends of the strip right sides together just like that. And then stitch in place. Use 1/2 inch seam allowance or the same as the overlapping width. It may be a little finicky to get this on the sewing machine, but it is doable. Finger press the seams open and then you want to continue stitching, picking up from where you left off up to the starting point. Now let's fold the binding over to the opposite side so that it will be hugging the raw edges and then secure with some clips. Alright guys, once everything is secured, you want to finish this binding. So you can either stitch on the gusset side along the edges. So this method will be obviously quicker. Another method, which is my preferred method, is to finish the binding with hand stitching. This will give you a nice and clean finish. So you want to perform slip stitches, simply alternating picking the binding and then the fabric. When you pick the fabric though, make sure that you don't go all the way to the exterior fabric. So just pick the lining fabric. I finished binding the front side here. Now I'm going to continue binding the back side the same way. And there you have it guys, the Serene Sling Bag is done. Now you can turn your bag right side out, finger press to neaten the corners and the seams. If you want, you can press the seams with iron on low setting. Make sure to use pressing cloth and be mindful with the fabric, especially if you use cork or faux leather fabric as the accent fabric. Also be mindful with the zipper and the hardwares. Make sure your iron will not touch them directly. And that's pretty much it guys for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and until next time, goodbye.